Hello, welcome to our Power Women Speaker Series. Today's event is aptly titled Sleeps Up, Save Lives, hosted by the American Red Cross and the Los Angeles Tiffany Circle. The Tiffany Circle is a powerful group of philanthropic women leaders who advance the Red Cross mission by engaging and embracing women locally, nationally, and internationally. I'm Joanne Madden, CEO of the Los Angeles region of the American Red Cross, and also the first woman to lead the LA region in over 100 years. I'm truly honored to serve in this role. My Red Cross journey started back in high school at the Red Cross Candy Store at our local hospital. That experience opened my eyes to many things, including the life-saving work of the Red Cross. 4 years ago, I became the CEO for the South Florida region of the Red Cross, and last summer, in the middle of a pandemic, I moved to Los Angeles. What a thrill and honor. One last thing, I am also a proud member of the Tiffany Circle. I love wearing my Tiffany bracelet and spending time with the amazing Tiffany sisters. I want to take a minute to thank you to our Tiffany Circle friends in Los Angeles, from across the country, and our esteemed panelists, and to each of you for joining us this morning. Before we kick things off, I'd like to mention a few things of note. Today's session is being recorded and you are in a listen-only mode. If you have any questions or comments for our speakers throughout the session, please feel free to submit them in the chat box. So don't be shy. We have a great group of panelists, and they are here to share their wealth of information with you. If the chat box hasn't automatically popped up on your screen, as a reminder, you can locate it by clicking on the toolbar icon at the bottom of your screen. Lastly, when using the chat option to ask your question, make sure it is going to everyone. You'll see that option, so we can all see your questions. So no need to wait, ask away, and we'll collect them as they come in. So for many, Red Cross is synonymous with disaster relief and giving blood. Either you've given blood or know someone who has given blood or been a recipient of blood. The Red Cross is so much more than that. We can learn today about some of the important and impactful work that we do. Did you know that Red Cross provides 40% of our nation's blood supply and blood products, all from generous volunteer donors? Or that one blood donation, one, can potentially save up to 3 lives. And that every 2 seconds, someone in the U.S. needs blood or blood platelets. So this one's particularly close to my heart for a very personal reason. About 10 years ago, I was on vacation in upstate Washington, and I was in a very serious accident in the mountains, and I had to be medevac to a trauma hospital in Seattle. I lost a lot of blood, and I am forever grateful for all of those Red Cross blood donors who made the choice, who gave their blood in their life-saving gift. So I am on a personal mission, and I give blood every 2 months, and I always encourage others to give if they can. Right now, about 3% of age-eligible people donate yearly. So I have some work to do. But, so we talk about the arm-to-arm journey. It is quite a story of that arm-to-arm journey of blood. From the generous person donating to the patient who receives it. Today, we want to tell you more about that story, so you can become well-informed and hopefully be inspired to sign up to give blood and encourage others. So please check out this powerful video about some first-time blood donors and what the gift of blood means to the donor and the man, woman, or child who seek best for them.
Why have you never donated blood before?
Intimidated to go in.
Needles? I would probably
Just gonna check your veins.
There's no needles yet. Well, I have a very special helper here today that I think might be able to help you through the process.
Really?
Oh, hi.
Well, hi there.
Are you scared?
A little nervous.
Well, I'm gonna help you get through it today.
You ready to get started?
Hold your hand.
Yes, please. Thank you.
It's okay.
If you want to hold my friend AJ, you can.
Thank you.
Eye contact.
All right.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting cow.
Interrupting cow.
Girl, I love your ripped jeans. Are your knees a little cold?
1, 2,
3.
1, 2.
Dang it.
Miss Emma, you are almost there.
Wow, girl, you're almost done.
I should bring you every time I get a shot.
There's actually a reason your helper here today is so familiar with the blood donation process.
So I have a blood disease that is called sickle cell anemia type SS. I've been hospitalized over 72 times and have blood transfusions over 70 times.
When I was 5 months old, I went into kidney failure. I needed to have a lot of blood transfusions.
And when I get the blood transfusions, it makes me feel like I'm me again, like I'm a kid, I can do anything.
Thank you for donating.
From the bottom of my heart.
Girl, give me a hug.
Well, I think everything we've talked about that kept my focus the most.
And not only I'm thankful, but my mom is too.
On behalf of whoever's going to get your blood, thank you so much. It means so much to us. Without you, she would not be here. Thank you so much.
Group hug.
This makes it 1,000,000% worthwhile. I'm literally honored and privileged to be able to do this.
Would you do it again?
I would happily do it again.
I feel like we should pinky promise.
You're all done.
I can hug you with both arms.
As a blood donor myself, that video gets me every time. Seeing the donors meet patients is so inspiring. So speaking of inspiring, the panelists of Powerful Women we have gathered today are experts in all things blood and biomed. I'm excited to have them share with you some of the life-saving work they do and how the Red Cross is continuing to lead the way with blood donation, blood management, and so much more. Dr. Yvette Marie Miller is our Executive Medical Director for the American Red Cross National Headquarters. We also have Pat Waxler. She's the District Manager of Collections for Red Cross Los Angeles. We have Lynn Householder Glenn, Senior Manager of National Programs at Red Cross National Headquarters. And Christine Welsh, our Regional Communications Manager with Red Cross in the Southern California region. Now, just a reminder, after we hear from our esteemed panelists, there will be an audience Q&A. So please drop in your questions in the chat and we'll get to them a little bit later in the program. So let's get started with our panelists. And Dr. Miller, I want to start with you. So this month marks 140 years since Clara Barton founded the Red Cross. So following her passion for helping others. So Dr. Miller, as a doctor, you too have dedicated your life to helping others. What brought you to the Red Cross and why does it continue to be so important to you?
So thank you so much for this opportunity to share information about me. And then as we continue this conversation, talk about blood donation. But literally my journey with the Red Cross started when I was a child. I grew up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and I lived right down the street from the Red Cross office on, I think it's Coliseum Drive, and the office is still there. And so one day on the way to school, and so my mother was studying to be a nurse, and one day on the way to school, I asked her, what did the Red Cross do? And she said they help people during disasters, but one of the most important things that they do is that they collect blood and help people when they are sick and need a blood transfusion. And I said at that time, I want to work for the Red Cross. And so literally the trajectory of my entire, and then I went on to nursing school before I went to medical school. And so the trajectory of my whole life has intersected with Red Cross. After I finished college, I volunteered with the Red Cross as a CPR instructor. And then, of course, I ended up with this fantastic career with the American Red Cross. So so the Red Cross has meant so much to me, both personally and professionally, almost for my entire life.
That you are a true Red Crosser, and thanks to your mom for giving you that spark. I think that's a note. More buildings of Red Cross can inspire folks. So thank you, Dr. Miller. So Pat, I would love to ask you our next question. So Pat, during the past year of the pandemic, there was so much loss, and you continued your important and difficult work with our blood collection teams. So can you tell us how COVID-19 changed the way Red Cross collects and distributes blood?
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Joanne. Thank you for letting me speak about this. At the start of the pandemic, what happened was we saw thousands and thousands of blood drives come off the calendar. That's a loss of tens of thousands of units as companies no longer had their workforces in the building, as high schools closed. All of those blood drives went away. And then two really profound things happened. First, the US Surgeon General went on the Today Show and put out the call to action. And I believe his quote was something like, just because we're socially distancing doesn't mean we have to be socially distanced. And he specifically asked Americans if they were healthy and well to come out and donate blood. The second thing that happened was our amazing partners with Humanitarian Services put out their feelers to all of their many contacts and said, hey, do you have a space? If we can put together a blood drive, can you host a socially distanced blood drive for us and be our partner? And they did. And so all of those units we saw come off the calendar quickly came back on. And let's be honest, folks had a lot of flexibility in their schedule the last 15 months. And so we saw a lot of new donors come and heed that call to action. And hopefully, we continue to see that trend.
I love that. I love that. In our darkest days, we as a country came together, from the Surgeon General to just everyone saying, okay, we can do this. So thank you, Pat. Lynn, I have a question for you. So, I mentioned earlier in my talk about Red Cross collecting 40% of the nation's blood supply. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do for the Red Cross and why our work in the biomed space is critical to our country?
Sure, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today too. I thought maybe I was the longest Red Crosser on this call at 19 years, but I think Dr. Miller has me beat. There was no Red Cross in my small town where I grew up, but I'm excited to be doing the work that I do. I'm really passionate about it, and I'm lucky to hear some stories of some incredible blood donors and blood recipients. I see we've got some blood donors on the call today, so thank you for that. But excited to really get to share this part of our mission with folks like you. And that's what I get to do every day. And our fundraisers do that as well. One of the things I wanted to mention is we really have in the last couple of years come together as one Red Cross to highlight both the incredible disaster relief work we do, as well as this blood services mission. Not as many folks, I find, when I have these discussions, know about all the things we do in blood services. And so I've got a few stats here if you'll bear with me here, but we are the nation's largest blood provider, and blood can't be manufactured. So it has to come from these generous volunteer donors. And then of course, the Red Cross works 24/7, 365 days a year to make sure ultimately that we're meeting the mission, which is to make sure we've got blood available where people need it, when they need it, and that it's safe. And it's gone through all of the infectious disease tests and processes to make sure it's ready to go. And that happens in transfusions for people who are battling cancer, who need blood during their treatment, people who've had complicated childbirth in need of transfusion of blood, people who are having planned surgeries, and you want to make sure you've got that blood available should you need it. And then in the case of accidents, Joanne, you mentioned that even for yourself. I mean, certainly that's not something you can anticipate. And it's the Red Cross's job, and really, frankly, our mission to make sure that blood is there before you need it, so that when you do, it's on the shelf and ready to go. And then the other piece of what we do, that's our mission every day, you know, in blood, and it literally happens every day. The other piece of what we're really focused on is investing in innovations, cutting edge technology, to not just make sure we've got blood available every day, but that we're looking into the future to anticipate needs that are coming, increasing demand for certain blood products. And so making investments in things like our blood management system. It is literally the brains of the operation, to make sure that we've got the best technology to move blood around the country on a moment's notice, if we need to. And then the other focus is really around fighting cancer. Many people don't know that blood transfusions are a critical part of a cancer patient's healthcare journey. And so we are talking quite a bit about that work and making sure we elevate that work, and so that we can inspire support for it. So thank you for having me here today.
Great. Thank you, Lynn. And I know you all so much is invested in that safe blood supply, but I'd love to hear about this innovation and forward, and how we can continue to save even more lives. So Christine, I have a question for you. So you have a very interesting role in that you've seen firsthand that fascinating journey of blood from being donated all the way to the recipient. So can you tell us what that journey looks like?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me here today. I have the opportunity to work right here in our backyard in the Southern California region. We're the second largest blood manufacturing facility in all of the United States. So after the blood is collected from those donors, like you saw in that video, or any blood drive or donation center in the state of California, and even some in Arizona, it's sent to our facility here. So again, it's processed, it's manufactured, it's sorted into a transfusible unit. And again, after it goes through some of those testing process that Lynn had mentioned, it's sent to our local area hospitals, or where it's needed most. You know, again, we have the opportunity and the ability to send it to hospitals throughout the US. And again, where it's most needed for our critical patients.
Well, thank you. And, you know, Christine, I'm so glad finally, now that we're almost beyond the pandemic, I'll be able to visit the Pomona headquarters and see the incredible work that's happening there. So thank you for that. So I'd like to come back to you, Dr. Miller. So we talk about a diverse blood supply. So can you tell us what that means? Why is that so important?
Well, a diverse blood supply is important because we have a diverse population. And so our blood supply and our donor pool should reflect the general population. So in this country, and certainly within the Red Cross, I mostly focused on Red Cross data, but I would certainly say that across this country, the majority of blood donors are Caucasian. And while the blood of any person can be transfused to any other person, in specific situations, like we saw that young lady on the video who said that she had sickle cell disease, when we have patients that have sickle cell disease that require frequent blood transfusions, that blood has to be closely matched between the donor and the recipient. And because African Americans have some very unique proteins on our red blood cells that are inherited. So it's not based necessarily on race, it's based on your genetic background and your heritage. And so those unique proteins are most commonly found in someone who is of African descent. And so we need a large pool of African American blood donors to closely match those recipients so that they can receive the most compatible blood product. And so you mentioned as well that only about 3% of the population donates, and only about 1 to 2% of African Americans donate. African Americans donate at about 25 to 50% of that general population rate. And so it is a struggle. And so that's why we have this project that we instituted at the end of 2019. Even before COVID-19, we understood that we were not meeting the transfusion needs of patients with sickle cell disease. So the project became even more important because of COVID, because the African American community was hit so significantly by COVID-19, and African American donor presentation decreased tremendously. So that's why we need diversity in the donor pool. So we need everyone from all genetic backgrounds, you know, and all races to donate blood to meet the general transfusion need. But in specific cases like sickle cell disease, we need African Americans to donate to meet those needs of that patient population.
That is, Dr. Miller, thank you so much for explaining that, how it's inherited and the important work we need to continue to do and to reach out to all the communities to encourage them and build the trust with them. Truly life-saving. So Pat, I have a question for you. So blood collection is paramount to saving lives. We know that. Can you tell us about the need for blood drives presently? What do you think those will look like in the future?
Really good question. That's something that we're really trying to figure out and study so that we can continue the blood supply at the levels that it's at. We are seeing, as the world is, slowly opening up, we are seeing a drop in appointments, a drop in businesses able to open their doors to us. They're all trying to figure it out themselves too. So I encourage anybody that is eligible, that has maybe donated in the past, would like to come back, to really reach out to their community, encourage them to donate, because I do see levels dropping off.
Yeah, that's good to know. And right, like people now they have a lot more options to do things. So this is my request to everyone on the call. Please keep encouraging folks to share this story of the importance of signing up so we can have more successful blood drives. So Christine, so the Southern California Blood Services headquarters in Pomona, can you talk about why this blood collecting and manufacturing facility is so important? What's the work going on there?
Right. As I mentioned too, again, all of the blood that is collected from the blood drives that happen every day, in LA and Southern California, we have about 50 blood drives happening daily in our communities. So again, all that blood, it comes through our doors. It goes through a series of steps. It goes from testing, storing, distribution again, and it's sent out to our area hospitals. We are open 24/7, and again, we do collect blood 365 days a year too. So just for example, in 2019, we processed over 865,000 blood products, and again, those are going out to our community hospitals or where they're most needed. Our platelets are often flown across state lines to meet the needs of cancer patients.
Wow, that is, and I tell you, one of the things I've been so impressed with, Christine, is the blood donor app. So easy. You get a rapid pass, you sign in, you're done. It makes it so much easier. Can you talk a little bit about that blood donor app?
Yes, thanks to technology on your smartphone, you can now download a Red Cross blood donor app. And from that app, you can easily search and schedule your blood drive or blood appointment in your local community by zip code or a special sponsor code. From there, on the actual day of your donation, you can complete some of those commonly asked health history questions through a rapid pass. And again, that saves about 15 minutes of time at your actual blood donation. Afterwards, again, we document your blood journey. So again, you can see the different steps of where your donation is occurring. And then you also get an alert once your blood unit has been shipped to an area hospital. So it's a very helpful tool. And in addition, it also stores some of your health history, some of the details of your last donation, such as your pulse or hemoglobin levels. So again, it's a great app to have, and it's just easy and convenient. So we encourage you all to download it and have it available.
That's right. And Christine, one of the things I love is shortly after I give blood, maybe a couple weeks later, I get an email that where my blood went, which hospital is using it. And you just feel that connection to, it's really going to help someone. So Dr. Miller, I want to ask you a couple more questions. What do you see as some of the future changes in blood donation eligibility based on FDA approvals and guidance?
Well, just last week, we received notice from the FDA, and it seems like it was 1,000 years ago, but just, I guess, 6 or 7 years ago, there was a virus called the Zika virus that we were mandated to test for. And because we're not having the exposure and the infections have significantly decreased, we received notice from the FDA that we no longer have to test for Zika virus. So one of the things that happened with COVID is that the FDA, like many other organizations, became more nimble. And it generally takes the FDA a long time to change policies and procedures. But as we saw, just last year, multiple deferrals were decreased from 12 months to 3 months. And so that we could encourage and support individuals to donate. And so what I see happening is that the FDA is going to continue to review data and make changes in donor eligibility based on technology, but also based on the presence of infectious diseases. So that is something that's definitely coming down and from the FDA, is that we're going to see some changes regarding donor eligibility in that respect. Some of the things that are also on the horizon that the FDA is looking at, and again, there is a research project, and I know that Los Angeles region is involved in it. And it's a project called the Advanced Study, where they're looking at specific populations, particularly the MSM population, and looking at doing some research and some studies on the infectious disease markers in that population, because there is significant discussions with that community about having the unfettered access to blood donation like many other communities. And so that study is going to provide a significant amount of information. The study has just started, but there will probably be information out of that study over the next 2 years that may have an impact on that community's ability to be able to donate. So those are two of the most significant things that I see coming down, is continually looking at and decreasing deferral periods, but also looking at increasing equitable access to blood donation by all communities.
Yeah. I'd love to hear that. I love to hear that the FDA was able to become more nimble. I think if anything, COVID-19 taught us that the impossible can become possible. So love that progress. So following that, I know there is a lot of research going on with blood donations. Can you give us insight on what that research is? What's happening and what will change?
Well, again, just one of the most significant pieces of research that has happened since 2019. So the only cure for sickle cell disease is a stem cell or bone marrow transplant. But that technology that those two researchers from California that received the Nobel Prize this year was on this technique called Crispr Technique. And so it's a gene editing tool. And that means that, so we all have genes in our body that can lead to disease. For sickle cell disease, there's a specific gene abnormality that leads to the sickling of red blood cells. So there's a research project going on now using that gene editing technique to remove that abnormal gene and insert the normal gene. And so there was, in 2019, the first patient was transplanted using this gene editing technique. And the data has shown that since she had that gene editing technique transplant, she has not required any treatment, any transfusion, or any admission to the hospital after that initial period after the transplant. So that is really completely encouraging scientific research for not just for patients with sickle cell disease, but with any patient that has a biological disease that's due to an abnormal gene. They think that many diseases will be able to be cured by the use of this gene editing technique.
That's amazing. That is so exciting to hear that. And, even sickle cell, I know it's a painful, horrible disease. And to hear that there's some bright light, maybe some hopeful changes coming. So ladies, thank you. You have shared such powerful and important things. I am so thankful to each of you because you teach us, you're educating us about all the work being done by our biomed teams. And I'm so proud how the Red Cross has adapted during this global pandemic. It's really remarkable. I think the reminder, one of the easy takeaways from today is that the need for blood never diminishes. It's not manufacturable, so we rely every single day on all of those blood drives. So I'm sure that you all have inspired some of our listeners to donate today. All right, it is time to hear from our audience members. I'd like to introduce Courtney Jafuko. She is our Director of Individual and Foundation Giving, who's going to be helping me with the audience Q&A. So Courtney, I'm going to have you kick it off.
Hello, good morning. Okay, so we have a lot of questions coming in. So the first question, I'm going to ask Dr. Miller to answer, and then Pat, if you wouldn't mind as well. What do you think the future of blood and blood donations will be? Dr. Miller, you want to start first?
Yeah, so again, the challenge will always be getting that message out to communities as to how important blood donation is, in that at this particular time, there's still no substitute for blood. There has been research, ongoing research by some biotech companies to develop a product that might be used as a blood substitute. But remember, blood is more than just red blood cells. There's plasma, there's platelets. So there's going to be no universal substitute for blood. So the future of blood is that we have to get better with, one, reaching out and interfacing with communities and making sure that we have a broad coalition of organizations and community-based organizations that we work with. Because the Red Cross, our outreach is just one part of the equation. Remember, the organizations that we partner with are voices in the community. So we need to do a better job with broadening our base of organizations that we partner with so that they can be our voice and they can encourage people to come in and donate. So I see the future of blood collection and blood donation as extremely bright as we continue to do our outreach and strengthen our partnerships with community-based organizations and businesses.
Great. Thank you. Pat, did you have anything to add?
I just wanted to add that 40% of the nation's blood supply, not just here in Los Angeles, but across the country, comes from high school students. And as we see high schools start to reopen and, not quite sure about what their staggered schedule is going to look like, are they going to allow everybody back? Are they going to do it on a rotating basis? We don't know. Some of our largest blood drives and biggest collection results come from area high schools. And so if we can find a way, and I know we have lots of groups working on this, of engaging our youth, so that maybe they don't donate at their school, but they can find a local community blood drive to donate. I think that's going to be critical in terms of keeping our blood supply levels up.
And I just want to add one more point. 25% of our blood supply, Red Cross blood supply, comes from high school and colleges. So that outreach that we have to do, and we have to help the donors figure out how to access donation, because even when school is back in session, there's likely going to be some limitations as to organizations being able to come on campus and host blood drives. And I know that, we are still trying to figure out how we're going to do our mobile units and our community-based blood drives. So that outreach to high school students and college students is absolutely critical. That's a piece we absolutely need to master.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you both. Okay, next question. Is there one biomedical or blood innovative technology that you wish existed? I'm going to toss that to Lynn. Would you have thoughts on that? The technology.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, no, great question. I think going back to that blood management system, it's a 4-year project, a $58 million overhaul, frankly, of our inventory management. And you think about how much blood the Red Cross manages across the country. As the leading blood, collector and distributor, it's really critical to make sure that we've got technology that can shift during COVID and when FDA guidelines are changing, or collecting a new product like convalescent plasma. I mean, I think that's the one, and we're in partnership with One Blood. It's another blood collector, primarily based in Florida, but a regional blood collector across the country. So we are trying to think outside of the box to create new technologies and systems that will help us really use that resource, that precious resource, most wisely. The other piece is that in our rare donor program, so the American Red Cross manages the American Rare Donor Program for blood bankers across the country. And that's for people with the rarest blood needs, matching those rare needs with folks who have rare blood types themselves and can donate blood. So, we're looking to overhaul that system as well, so that it's less manual and more automated, so that ultimately it's about efficiency and making sure we get blood to people, like I said, when they need it, where they need it.
Yeah, the amount and matching the type it's life-saving, truly, truly. Okay, Dr. Miller, we have another question for you. Saw the benefits from convalescent plasma for COVID-19 treatment. Is this continuing to be an effective treatment? And if so, why isn't it being publicized more, do you think?
Well, a couple of things. One, because we did implement the use of convalescent plasma, because we know historically that convalescent plasma has been useful, in other epidemics and other pandemics. So we know that it was effective. But things changed so quickly with convalescent plasma. It took us a while to figure out how high the antibody titer had to be, and just means it took us a while to figure out how much antibody needed to be in a unit for it to be effective. Another thing that we struggled to find out is, when is the best time to develop symptoms before they are admitted to the hospital, as soon as they start to develop symptoms, or do we transfuse once they get to the hospital? So it took us a while to figure out how high the antibody needs to be, as well as when is the optimum time. And so we lost some time just trying to figure out those pieces. And so we're on the sort of the downslope of the curve because we don't have as many hospitalizations. And, at the same time we were trying to figure out those two pieces, research was going on where we were getting conflicting information out of the research. Sometimes it was effective and sometimes it wasn't. So the preponderance of the research didn't show that it was universally effective. So there's still some research projects going on now looking at it, because we do expect, another wave. Hopefully it'll be, a muted wave, but we are expecting that at some point we may need to use convalescent plasma again. So some of that research now is being looked at, and the data is being reviewed, so that in the next time that we use it, we have concrete information about how high the antibodies titer has to be for the product to be effective. And we'll also know at what time frame the transfusion is most effective.
Gosh, so many learnings from the pandemic, right? We're just grateful that people like you on our side to help us through. So the next question is for Christine. So as a communications person who has worked very closely with our blood systems and knows that whole world, do you feel it's important to get the younger generations involved? How important is that?
Yes, definitely. It's so important to engage our youth and to kind of educate them and raise awareness about the blood process and why it's needed and why it constantly needs to be replenished. I mean, not only with our youth, but of all demographics too. We see that there is still that education that, blood unfortunately cannot be manufactured. It can only come from the generosity of blood donors. And it also has a shelf life, so it expires. So it's important to always make sure that we are collecting, for example, platelets only have a shelf life of 5 days. So there's a constant need for our trauma and our cancer patients to have generous donors to come in and donate platelets. as well as with other blood products such as whole blood donations again. And whole blood has a shelf life of 42 days. So again, it's raising awareness, and it's also engaging them and sharing information about how they can help with that 1 hour blood donation or 2 hour or 3 hour platelet donation as well.
Yeah, our kids are a mighty force, right, in helping with blood collection. Okay, I'm going to ask Lynn, if you wouldn't mind answering this question that I got. Why is it important for the Red Cross to be involved in things like sickle cell and cancer programs, in addition to the blood drives and the donations?
Yeah, I mean, you know, in this work, I didn't know much about sickle cell disease. Certainly didn't know about the use of blood and transfusions for cancer patients. So I think you really point back to the people who receive blood. It's all about the recipients, and that really is where our mission comes to play. And, you know, it's just about meeting those blood needs. And so, you know, Dr. Miller mentioned all of the work and the emphasis and effort around sickle cell and finding right matched blood, and on the cancer patients too. Blood is, you know, about your blood types, A, B's, and O's, but also about those medical, you know, pieces like the proteins that Dr. Miller mentioned. It really is a complicated business to be in when you think about finding the right match. You know, ultimately, when you get a blood transfusion, you want to make sure it makes people feel better and not sicker and have their body, you know, negatively react to that transfusion. So there's so much science and technology and innovation involved in that work to, again, meet people where they are with the right kind of blood.
Yeah, it's so important for cancer. And one of my friends, after she would get her treatment, she just said she felt like such a new person, and it was just from night and day. So important. Thank you. Pat, we have this question coming for you. How do staff who are in the blood collection world, how do you stay up to date with changes in blood donation?
So for our staff, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, people who are helping to manage it. How do you stay up to date?
Yes, so we are, again, nimble is the key word here. Things change all the time, and getting that communication out to our supervisors and our staff is something we do weekly. We have a learning system called EDGE, where we have certain learnings and curricula posted that staff need to sign off by a certain date, and we have somebody managing that and looking at that all the time. We Red Cross is pretty amazing in terms of our communication abilities. By any means possible, we get that information out to our staff, and our real critical piece is our supervisors. Having supervisors that are engaged and stay on top of things and are committed, so that their staff are really on top of everything.
Yeah. So important. Okay, next question. Dr. Miller, I got another one for you. This one's interesting to me. Can people who were vaccinated still give blood? And are there any guidelines around that?
Yes, people that are vaccinated can still give blood. So the vaccines that are most common in the United States, Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson, there's no restriction. So after you receive the vaccine and are feeling healthy and well, then you can donate blood. So there's no restrictions. We encourage people to come to donate and thank you for asking that question, because there is some, in the beginning when people were receiving the vaccine mostly as an experimental drug, there was a deferral period. And when we started doing vaccinations, there was a lot of confusion about, you know, which ones, because in the beginning, some of the types of vaccines were created in a way that led to a deferral. And so those vaccines are now not part of the emergency use authorization, so we don't have to worry about those that required a deferral period. So the ones that we use in the US now do not require any type of deferral period.
Interesting. Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I know that's on a lot of our minds. Okay, I'm going to toss this to the group. What can a volunteer? We have a lot of people who want to volunteer to help. So this is amazing. So fingers are crossed for a lot more blood donations. But if someone wanted to volunteer to support Biomed, what can they do to help?
I'd like to take that one first, if I might. Thank you for being interested, first of all. We cannot survive. The Red Cross mission is built on the power of volunteers. So it's always so important. In the biomed world, the two things that come to mind first is to be a donor ambassador. We have large number of people presenting to donate blood. We need somebody to help triage all of those donors and help act as a hostess or a host, if you will. The second way is a little bit more of a commitment, and that's to be a volunteer medical screener. Every blood donor that comes in does an intake, if you will, and we ask them all sorts of personal questions that will determine their eligibility. We also give them a mini physical. We have volunteers that are being trained to do that, and they pick up a couple shifts a month, so it really helps enhance our donor experience, limits wait times, and I will say some of our volunteer medical screeners score the highest in their donor engagement surveys that go out post-donation about their customer service skills and just providing such a pleasant experience for our donors.
Yeah. Okay, Christine, I have another question. We're talking about engaging our youth in blood drives, collection, donation. Can you talk a little bit about what are the outreach plans for them? Like social media, I know is huge for them. Can you talk a little bit about what the Red Cross's plans are and how we reach out to younger generations?
Yeah, there's a variety of ways that we do outreach. I know things are a little different with the current situation too, but again, we have a lot of our Red Cross clubs that they are engaged and they host blood drives at their high schools or universities. So again, they're speaking to their peers and they're educating and encouraging everyone to donate. And they get access to all the blood tools. So they get their education process and we guide them along the way too. There's also certain scholarship programs, Leaders Save Lives, again, which we encourage those folks with great leadership skills to step up and help organize in their community. Again, we encourage folks, if you're a blood donor ambassador, again, you're on the front lines. And even for some of the older youth, again, obviously licensed, you're also encouraged, you can volunteer and be a blood transportation specialist. So you can even sign up to deliver that life-saving blood to hospitals if that's an area of interest for you as well. But again, we have a variety of tools, social media, and different toolkits, again, that we encourage our youth to get involved with.
Is there an age requirement? Remind us, Christine, is it 15?
16 in certain states with parental consent, and 17 and older in most states.
Perfect. We get a lot of questions about some of our volunteers' children who want to donate, so thank you.
And then just the one thing, so in states where 16-year-olds can donate, they have to have a written parental consent.
Very good, yes. Okay, this is a really interesting question, so throwing to the entire panel. Is there a geographical correlation to people's blood types?
So different populations congregate or live in larger percentage in different parts of the country. So only in that respect, there might, so first, O is the most common blood type. And so you would find that all over the country. But if you have a population that's primarily, Asian, in those areas, they have, I think it's not O. I don't think O is they have a higher percentage of either A or B. So only in that respect, if there's a larger population of a particular ethnic group in a geographic area, there might be an increase in the percentage of.
That's fascinating. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Miller. Thank you all the panelists. Joanne, I think that's about the time we have for questions.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you all. I am learning so much today. To our panelists, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing your wisdom, and just being a part of an incredibly important conversation. And thank you, Courtney. Great job. I now want to introduce someone who's a very important member of our Tiffany Circle Los Angeles family, and that is Posey Carpenter. Posey is not only a Tiffany Circle member, but she is also the vice chair of our esteemed Tiffany Circle in Los Angeles. She is chair of the West LA chapter board, And there's actually many more things she does, but I just want to let you all know that she was just recently honored by the American Red Cross with the Ann Magnuson Award. This is the highest honor of nursing achievement in the American Red Cross. And Posey Carpenter is incredibly deserving. So Posey, to you.
Thank you so much, Joanne, and thank you to our wonderful panelists. I always learn so much as well, listening to all of the panelists, and I volunteer in the biomed space. So that's saying something. I wanted to share a little bit about my experience as a biomed a volunteer. Since 2018, my wife and I have had the honor to serve with Pat Waxler and her team of blood collection staff in the Western Los Angeles region. We both serve as registered nurses at blood drives because in the state of California, it's required to have a registered nurse at every blood drive. By serving in this capacity, we've been able to help save blood drives that would otherwise be canceled. And we've been able to help save on cost associated with having an RN at that blood drive as well. So that always feels good. We also, Pat mentioned the volunteer medical screener program. We both were trained to do the volunteer medical screening, and we've been doing that for about a year now. And it is a great experience to be able to welcome our donors, to do the history and physical, to hand them off to the staff. When the staff are busy, we know that it's been really beneficial to have us there. We jump sometimes into being ambassadors. We obviously we help if someone gets dizzy or has some sort of side effect from the blood donation. So we're right there to help with that. And if we ever have questions about what to do, the staff are just amazingly helpful and supportive and knowledgeable in terms of the medical screening process. The training for medical screening took us, Pat mentioned it's a big commitment. It took us 5 days of in-class training and then another 5 to 10 days of on-the-job training. And then not only do you have that, but once a year, you also have a quality assessment of your skills to make sure that you continue to do everything properly. So we love it. We have a great time. And we know that we're helping the staff to have a much less hectic day. If you're at a blood drive for 6 hours, depending on how it's staffed and what neighborhood it's in, you can collect anywhere from 30 to 40 units per blood drive. That translates into helping well over 60 people. And so that, when you think about it, for 6 hours worth of time, it is such a rewarding way to help and to volunteer. I also love the story from people who have been transportation specialists and have delivered blood to the hospitals. One of our oldest transportation specialists in Los Angeles tells the story of how he went to deliver blood and they were standing at the door of the hospital because the patient was on the table. And what a difference that made in that patient's life. And the transportation specialist, Robert, he was elated. He really realized the importance of his job and was so grateful to be able to help. I love volunteering for the Red Cross, and that is what I call my forward-facing, my client-facing position in the Red Cross. I have a bunch of different positions, but that's my favorite. I've met people who've become prospective board members. I start seeing now that I'm going to the same blood drives, I start seeing return clients. So I'm getting to know our community. So it is just a great experience. And if anybody's interested, I would love to talk to you and support you in that. I also encourage you all to donate blood. You may have seen in the chat that I donate, like Joanne, every 56 days. I get that on the calendar, and I think so far I've donated across my life about 4.5 gallons of blood. And I have to tell you, that is nothing compared to some of our blood donors. I feel good about it, but it's nothing compared to what some people are doing. I also really encourage you to support the Red Cross mission in terms of donations of your treasure to the Red Cross. So if that is an interest of yours as well, you can hear that we have cutting edge technologies that we're supporting. The LA Tiffany Circle recently, I think in the last 2 years, fully funded a blood mobile, and we're looking forward to seeing that come soon, and we'll be able to celebrate that. And I also really encourage you, if you're interested in learning more about the Tiffany Circle. I've been a member of the Tiffany Circle since about 2017, and it is just an amazing group of women. Here in Los Angeles, we're about 40 strong and growing. And so we'd love to have new members. So anybody who's not a member who's on the call, please feel free to reach out to us and we can speak more about that. And I'm going to turn it back to you, Joanne.
Thank you, Posey. You are amazing. Thank you to Posey and everyone who has participated in this Tiffany Circle Power Women Speaker Series. We appreciate our panelists, brilliant women, and our audience for taking the time today to listen and learn more about the Red Cross and our biomed work. One more time, I want to mention our Red Cross Blood app, where you can easily schedule appointments and get your donor card and everything you need to know about participating as a blood donor. So you can text blood app to 90999, or you can search the Red Cross Blood on the App Store. So we're going to put that information in the chat, and then we're also going to send the links to all of you about today's event. But thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of today's series. Thank you. I hope I have encouraged you, if you haven't yet, to donate blood or encourage others to do so. And I just hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Look forward to seeing you soon at another Red Cross event here in Los Angeles region. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.